Chelsea's are back on the menu, and what kind of boot guy would I be if I didn't check out Red Wing's most popular and enduring offering in the Chelsea boot category, the Weekender. Now, the Weekender Chelsea, this is a 3311 model here in Red Wing's very famous copper rough and tough leather. This is the iconic seminal, been around for a long time Chelsea boot on offer from Red Wing Heritage. And it's significantly more casual than many of Red Wing Heritage's other offerings. So instead of a Goodyear welt, it's got stitched down construction. It does not have a shank in here. It's got this polyurethane foam sole, which makes for a boot that's much more flexible and much more lightweight than many of the other offerings from Red Wing Heritage, and it's really got a very breezy, slip them on and go out for coffee sort of casual vibe when compared to their sturdier, stompier sorts of boots that they're more famous for, like the Red Wing Iron Ranger, which is heavy, has a brutal break-in period, and has a Goodyear welt. That's not what you're gonna get with the Weekender Chelsea boots. Huckberry calls these off-the-clock style with Workwear Pedigree, which I thought was a pretty nice quote that kind of encapsulates the Weekender Chelsea. Unlike probably my favorite thus far Chelsea boot, which would be, of course, the Iron Williams Comfort Craftsman, which is like twice the cost of these. This is not one piece of leather or stitched around at the back. It's actually 3 pieces of leather, maybe even 4, all kind of put together. So it doesn't have quite as clean a vibe as a lot of other Chelsea boots out there, which are quite often just like stitched 1 piece of leather all the way around, stitched at the back. Sometimes it's like 2 or 3 pieces of leather with just some subtle stitching here. This has like nice, obvious stitching here going around the toe. That does sort of confer a bit of an air of toughness to it, but at the same time, again, it is a very, very casual boot. So let's take a really close look at this leather because it might be Red Wing's most beloved leather. So this is Red Wing's famous rough and tough leather. It's 2 to 2.2 millimeters thick. So it's as thick as the leather you'll find on their other Heritage work boots. It's got a very high wax content on the exterior. It's a pull-up leather. So pull-up leather basically means that it's got color variation because of all the oils and or waxes, I think it's both in this case, that are slipping and sliding around inside the leather. This leather has both oil and wax in it. And you can see it has darker overtones and lighter overtones. And the lighter shade pulls through in some areas to give it more of a distressed type of look. Even when they're new and as they get a little bit older, they age quite quickly, but in a good way. So people who really want a patina on their boots, well, that's really important to them. The copper rough and tough leather is pretty well known for getting patina relatively quickly. When people get cool boots with a nice patina, it is often this kind of leather. As you can see in these older photos of boots with the same leather that I have found online. So it's a beloved boot, just don't expect it to look like the photo on their website, which is a very dark and uniform brown color. I don't know why that's the color they put on the website on Red Wing Heritage, because it doesn't come out like that. It's a lighter colored boot, and pretty quickly it's gonna get a pretty nice patina on it. Now, as much as everyone loves this leather, it is quite light colored as far as leathers go, so it's really easy to accidentally darken the leather and then sacrifice or potentially sacrifice that patina that you were hoping to accrue. What I'm trying to say here is that when you're conditioning the leather, when you're taking care of this leather, there are a lot of other creams out there, a lot of conditioners that could darken the leather. A lot of people will recommend you use Red Wing's boot oil, which is a mixture of mink oil and pine pitch, which is actually quite good at creating a water-resistant barrier around the leather. However, it does darken the leather. So what I would recommend you use instead would be Red Wing's Leather Cream, which I also recommend on the website for copper rough and tough. The leather cream is neatsfoot oil based. Neatsfoot oil is made from the rendered shin and feet bones of cattle, and it's really good at moisturizing the leather without darkening the color. So that's definitely what I would suggest. It's what Red Wing suggests as well. If you're in a bit of a budget, you can use something like Bic 4 or Lexol that will also condition the leather without changing the color. Those are all really good options. Lexol especially is really, really inexpensive. They all have different formulations. Nonetheless, they will do a good job at conditioning the leather, keeping it moist. Because they don't condition, because they don't sink in quite as deeply into the leather as some of these other conditioners that will darken the leather, you might need to condition them a little bit more often, depending on how often you wear them. If you're wearing them every other day, which is the maximum frequency you can wear a pair of boots, you really want to let them sit, let them rest a day in between wears, hopefully with some shoe trees in them to soak up the moisture, that kind of stuff. If you're wearing them really, really frequently, I would suggest condition it probably every 2 or 3 months, depending on how the boots are looking, if you're wearing them really, really frequently. You can always, if you're really worried about like salt stains, that kind of stuff, you can always use the boot oil. Yeah, that will help to create a barrier around the leather. Just know it will darken the boots. Now this sole is not the same kind of wedge sole you get in Red Wing's famous mock toe. While some people will tell you this is crepe rubber, it is not. This is in fact a type of polyurethane. So it performs like crepe rubber, but it's a little bit more durable, and it's really worth emphasizing. This sole is quite thin and soft. You really feel the ground beneath it when you walk around in them. Again, it's not a clumpy work boot, it's much more casual, it's a leisure boot. After the outsole, there's a layer of Texon, which is pretty soft and flexible as well. You'll see it in some athletic shoes, like in Nike and Reeboks. There's also a removable inset, which is also made from polyurethane. At least the guy I spoke to thinks it's made from polyurethane. He didn't sound 100% sure, but yeah, anyway, polyurethane, pretty cool. This is called the Comfort Force footbed. You can see that written over here. And it's covered in suede, and it has a slight arch to it. These shoes don't have amazing arch support as they are shank free, but they're very good at absorbing impact, even though it's a pretty thin sole. And the suede in the footbed helps to manage moisture as well. But of course, you should always remember to use shoe trees with these shoes. A cool bonus of having a removable insert, by the way, which I don't often mention, is that if you have orthotics, it makes it easy to slip them in. Like if arch support is really, really important to you, because the arch support is not amazing with this shoe. It's not super like tight in there. It's not super structured. More room than you would have in like shoes without a removable insert. So a tiny thing, but I do want to emphasize that because there's a lot of people out there who have trouble with their arches. Finally, this is stitch down construction. It's not a Goodyear welt. It might look like it to the untrained eye, but the stitching goes through the upper itself instead of going through a leather welt. If you look really close, you can see the leather has been flattened out here. Flanged out is technically the word. It's flanged out, and so to the mid and outsole. It's pretty hard wearing. My famously tough Viberg service boot uses a stitch down construction. It is a bit hard to resole though. It can be done, but cobblers will be a little bit less happy to do it. You might have a little bit more trouble finding someone who will do it. And also the shoe is not crazy water resistant. Goodyear welts are known for being very water resistant. This particular shoe anyway, it's quite water resistant, but I wore them in a storm in Manhattan this week, and while my feet were drier than they would have been in sneakers, my toes did get a little bit wet. So when it comes to the fit and sizing, as is always the case with Red Wing, you want to go down half a size from your true size, or like your sneaker size. Although sneakers are often a bit big. So what you want to do is get an Abranic device. That's like the device you have in a shoe store to measure your feet. I'm like an 11.5 on that. It's like 11.6 or something. And in all my Red Wing shoes, I'm a size 11, so go down about a half size. So as far as breaking them in, again, this has stitch down construction and also has a really nice soft sole. So I did not experience really any break-in at all. That's one of the big pros of this like not very overbuilt sort of shoe. I did get a bit of abrasion on my pinky toe the first like week or so I was wearing them, but that softened up a bit. It is pretty tough leather. It's rough and tough leather, but it softened up relatively quickly. And again, I wouldn't say these really had a break-in, especially relative to other Red Wing shoes like the Iron Ranger, like the Blacksmith. These are pretty tough shoes. Like I'll often get blisters during the first few weeks of wearing in Red Wing shoes. Not the case with these. So that's a big upside of the stitch down construction and the lack of a shank and this really nice flexible sole we got going on here. Speaking of the sole, it is relatively thin, you know, which again is really nice. These are leisure boots. They're leisure boots. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but they're leisure boots. They're not work boots. So you are not going to get that real feeling of like a very protected sort of feeling that you get when you wear like the sturdy, clumpy sort of work boots, like the Iron Ranger and the Blacksmith. Again, they're leisurely boots, so that's fine. It's not a big deal at all. But just you do need to know with like this polyurethane sole, if you're walking around on cobblestones, for instance, you can kind of feel like the breaks in between the stones. You know what I mean? Like it's not a very, very thick sole. You don't get that very protected feeling you might get with their sturdy boots, which is not a big deal at all. I love them. Really, really nice, casual, easy to put on boots. Just again, remember, they're not work boots. They're not like really big tanks. So as far as the price goes, a pair of these boots is going to cost you probably $240. That's the basic price. It's where it is on like Puckberry and Red Wing Heritage's official site, Amazon, all these sites. $240 is usually what you're looking at here. So for a Red Wing shoe that is pretty inexpensive, all these other models I keep mentioning, they are generally over $300. If you get the mock toes, those are $280 or so dollars, and those also have Goodyear welts and everything. This boot is $240, which is, it's not bad. Like you're getting Red Wing quality leather, and they have like really good quality leather. They've got their own tannery, all that other kind of stuff. Very, very cool. Made in the USA. But you're getting stitched down construction here, and there's no shank. For a lot of people, a Goodyear welt. That's what makes a shoe worth over $300. So Red Wing, they did the right thing by bringing the price down a bit and putting it under 250 bucks. Yeah, a lot of people out there, you just need to keep in mind that yeah, they don't have the shank, they don't have the Goodyear welt, and that is why they are less expensive. If you're okay with that, 240 bucks. Yeah, for a Red Wing shoe, it's not bad. All right, so why should you consider getting a pair of these weekend at Chelsea boots? I like the sole. There's a lot to talk about with it. There's also not much to talk about with it. There aren't like a whole lot of layers going on in here. But everything in this sole, I like it. It's nice. It's got really good shock absorption, actually. It's nice and flexible as well. It does not have like a big heel here like a lot of boots out there do. That makes some people feel a little bit less sure on their feet, which is good. And it's nice and thin as well. So it's a nice like casual, again, it's a leisure boot. Not really like thick or anything like that. You don't feel super, super protected. But I like the sole. Yeah, good shock absorption, nice and thin, nice and flexible. No break in either, so that's a big upside as well. The leather, of course, is Red Wing. Red Wing has fantastic leather. It's nice oil tanned leather, which means it doesn't actually need that much care. You don't need to baby it all that much. It's got this really nice, interesting pull up to it as well. Copper Rough and Tough is really beloved by a lot of people. There's like, I would say, people think that either the Amber Harness or the Copper Rough and Tough are probably the two most popular leathers in Red Wing. It goes back and forth a bit, but it's a really beloved leather, so you know you've got a real piece of Americana when you're wearing these boots. Now, there are a few potential downsides with this boot. Number one, it only comes in D widths. I didn't mention that earlier, but if you have unusually wide or unusually narrow feet, you're gonna be a bit bummed out about that. You can always order like, you know, bigger sizes or smaller sizes. This is like the sort of dance that people with, you know, B or E-shaped feet often are accustomed to. Another thing, this is a Chelsea boot, right? A lot of people, they prefer with the Chelsea boots to have a cleaner aesthetic than this. By that, I mean, oftentimes it'll look like one piece of leather stitched together at the back. Sometimes it is, like with the RM Williams. Other times it'll just be like stitched real subtle, like underneath the elastic here. This actually has like very obvious stitching here going around the toe like that. It does give it a bit more of a workwear sort of look, even though it is of course a leisure boot. But some people, yeah, that's not the aesthetic they want from their Chelsea boots, so that's up to you. That's very subjective, of course. It's just a potential downside. Another thing, there's no shank in this sole. A lot of people consider a shank to be like a really important part of the shoe. Helps it to, you know, give arch support, helps to maintain stability over time, that sort of stuff, helps to protect you from punctures if you're stepping on a sword or something like that, which might sound ridiculous, but of course, this polyurethane sole here, it is not the toughest sole in the entire world, right? This is stitched down construction. That does not mean it cannot be resoled. It does mean it's a little bit harder to resole, and it means the leather is a little bit more at risk of getting damaged or like sort of like shortened, like bits of it cut off during the resoling process. So you might not be able to resole as much as you want to, and that's actually could be a big deal because the guy I spoke to at Red Wing said this polyurethane sole, it is not as hardy, as hard wearing as like some of the Vibram soles or the old nitrile cork soles, that kind of stuff. He says that people who wear these really regularly, he sees them get them resoled every 1 to 3 years, which is, you know, pretty often. Again, it's fine, it's comfortable. I like the sole, especially for a Red Wing shoe. It's nice and soft and flexible and thin, which I think can definitely be a pro in a lot of circumstances. Nonetheless, yeah, not the most durable sole in the entire world, and no shank. All right, those are my thoughts on the Red Wing weekend at Chelsea. I feel like I gave a lot of cons there, but I actually do really like these shoes. I like to wear them. I just really love this sort of like breezy, easy nature of them. You can just slip them on. It's really nice, beautiful leather. It's going to age really well, nice and flexible, really comfortable, all that kind of stuff. I do like these boots. They're a little bit closer to a sneaker in some respects than like the really hardy heritage boots that you might be used to from Red Wing. But as long as you go into that with that sort of mindset, I think you're probably going to be happy with these boots. The full written review is in the description below if you want to check that out. There's some stuff I forgot to say in this video because I'm kind of tongue-tied. And also make sure you subscribe as well because I've got a whole lot more boot reviews and denim reviews and other kinds of stuff coming up.